Have you ever wondered what a submarine in space several hundred years in the future would look like? Well, today we're going to take a look at one. The Aegis Retaliator is a well-known ship in the Star Citizen universe. It has one of the oldest designs of any ship in the verse and has been in active service in the UEE Navy for several hundred years. It is a versatile platform that is built around two modules that are capable of performing a variety of duties. In today's video, we'll take a tour of the ship and talk about its many features, some things that it's good at, and some things where I think it could improve. So if you're a fan of the Aegis Retaliator, feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Let's begin with a brief tour of the Retaliator. The Retaliator has two primary entrances. One is going to be this elevator that we came up that goes down to the ground, and the other is directly across from the elevator, and that is going to be a docking collar. When you come up the elevator or through the docking collar, you end up in this large central room that then has different doors that go to the different sections of the ship. We're going to start by going to the rear starboard side of the ship, work our way around the back, come up the other side, and then we will look at the front of the ship. As we proceed back down this corridor, we can see that the Retaliator has fairly narrow corridors. This is because, again, the Retaliator is basically built around these two modular bays. One is back here. This is the rear bay. Currently, I have the rear torpedo module installed here. It is capable of carrying two size 9 torpedoes, as we can see here. Although there is also a cargo bay that you can buy for this that is capable of carrying 36 SCU, and I believe the maximum container size it can hold in there is a 16 SCU box. The Retaliator also got its gold standard pass last year at Invictus, so May of 2024, and had its components adjusted. So currently it has 6 size 2 shields. We can see a few of them here. It also has 2 size 2 power plants, 2 size 2 coolers, and a size 2 quantum drive. You can see that there are 4 of them on this side, 2 of them are on the other side of the ship, but we'll see those in a few minutes. We also have our fire extinguisher slot for when engineering comes into play. And then as we come into this back little area here, we have some relay access for when resource networking and engineering comes online. And then we have access to one of the upper rear turrets. So the Retaliator in total has 5 turrets, 3 on the top and 2 on the bottom. And currently they all have dual size 3 weapons. We also have some storage lockers here that do have personal inventory, so if we open that up, each of them has 600k micro SCU. So there's 3 on this side, and there's 3 on the other side as well, which we'll see in a minute. We have our cooler access. And then here at the rear of the ship is the lower turret access. So again, there's 3 turrets on top, 2 on the bottom, so this is the lower access to one of those bottom turrets. We have our other cooler access. And now we will start proceeding back up towards that middle area of the ship. So basically this, for the most part, this side of the ship is almost perfectly mirrored from the other side. There's just a couple minor changes. Again, we have this little extra area that has that turret access to the upper turret. We have a little bit more component areas, more storage lockers. And as we come up here, we can see we have some more component bays and our other shield generators. You can see again into that rear cargo or torpedo module. We also have a little bit of an interesting feature here, some little storage compartments, which these actually you can perfectly put in a 1/8 SCU container. They'll stack 2 of them right in here perfectly. So you can store some extra little containers in there if you want a little bit of extra storage aboard the ship. Across from this small storage area, we also have a small engineering room. I believe this will probably be where the engineering console is for the Retaliator. We also have another little relay panel here, and you also have a door that gives you access to the rear module. Next, let's proceed forward to the forward section of the ship. So the forward section of the ship is a little bit different in its layout compared to the rear section. So the corridors do not wrap around continuously on the front section of the ship. They are split. So let's go ahead and let's look at the right side here first, as this does not go to the actual front of the ship. This little room here is going to be the ship's bathroom and a little bit more storage area. But you have your toilet, sink, and shower for the crew. Next, we also have another door that gives us access to the forward bay. I currently have the torpedo module installed here. This bay is a little bit larger than the rear bay, so we have 4 size 9 torpedoes that are held in this forward bay. There's also a cargo module for this forward section. I believe it also carries 36 SCU, and it can also carry a 16 SCU container. Next, let's proceed forward on the port side of the ship towards the front. We have some nice glass that gives us a nice view into these giant size 9 torpedoes. We also have access to the ship's power plants here. These 2 slots. And another relay panel. Now we are in the forward section of the ship. We have a small room over here that is going to be your captain's quarters or your pilot's quarters. They have their own separate little bedroom that has a bed, some little storage cubbies, a little TV, some things like that, for presumably whoever is going to be piloting the ship. Now, as we can see here, there is a ladder that goes up to a very small second deck for the Retaliator that includes the access to one of the upper turrets on the forward section of the ship, as well as a small armory and crew quarters. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So as we can see, when we get to the top of the ladder, we have access to the top turret. And then as we go through here, we have some small armory where we have some gun racks. You could put your weapon in there. And then we have a small area that has 6 beds for the other crew members. So the Retaliator in total has space to sleep 7 people, so I would assume that is going to be your pilot, your 5 turret gunners, and then someone that is probably going to be your engineer. So you have that would be your full crew for the Retaliator. I believe these also double as escape pods for the crew in the event of an emergency. That's not functional right now, but sometime in the future that probably will be used. There's also some little windows that go along the top section here that actually give you a pretty nice view outside. You know, you're laying down, taking a nap or whatever, you're off duty, you can look up into the sky outside the ship. As we proceed back towards the ladder, there's actually also some other small windows right here you can see a little bit out of as well. Lastly, let's check out the pilot seat. So as we go towards the pilot seat, we have one more turret access. This is going to be for the lower turret right here on the front of the ship. And then if we go just a little bit more forward, we have the pilot seat. I would say in the pilot seat of the Retaliator, you do have fairly good visibility. With the gold standard pass for the Retaliator, it used to have a really big radar screen here in the middle that was very annoying when you were trying to fly it. That is now gone, so there's just the holographic radar here. So your visibility is pretty good, your MFD placement's pretty good. You have 2 primary MFDs here that you can see very easily. There's 2 secondary MFDs that are not as easily visible, but you can have some other random information on there if you need to look there quickly. But the visibility overall, I think, is really, really nice. But the overall feel of the pilot seat for the Retaliator is very nice. It feels very military, very Aegis, and I really like the feel of it. Now, before we get into anything else, I want to do a brief sound test for you all. The Retaliator has some very cool sounding engines, and I know that they reworked that fairly recently, so you may have not heard it. So I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to fly around for just a minute, and then we will talk about a few more things to do with this ship.
Engines alive.
So there is a brief engine test so you can hear how the engines sound again. I really like how these engines sound. They have a really nice, beefy, powerful sound to them. It like sounds military to me, so I really like how the Retaliator sounds. Also, just its ambient sounds in the ship are also very nice as well. So let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments. Do you like the engine sounds of the Retaliator? Do you think it should change at all? Or what changes would you like to see to those, if any? In terms of like maneuverability, the Retaliator does handle somewhat heavy. It's definitely not a nimble ship by any means. It's definitely, not really slow like the 890 jump or anything like that, but it's not going to be, you're not going to be out turning a Gladius or anything in this. So it's, I think its handling is proportional for its size. It is a fairly long ship. I believe it's almost 80 meters long. So in terms of that, the maneuverability is decent for its size. Not great, but it'll be good enough to do the job. So now that we've gone through a tour of the ship and done a little bit of an engine test, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I really like about the ship. I wanted to talk about some of the modules and things regarding that, as well as the weapons for the ship. And then I wanted to also speak a little bit on some things that I think could be improved and potential future modules or things like that we could see as well. So the reason I bring up the guns on the Retaliator is, so by default, when you buy a Retaliator, it has no modules equipped. So those the bays, the forward and rear bays, they don't have anything in them. They don't have a cargo grid, they don't have torpedoes, they don't have anything. So pretty much all the Retaliator is a decently shielded, pretty heavily armored and tanky, like the Retaliator has like 138,000 HP. It's pretty tanky. Gunboat, basically, is what you have. Because all you really have is those 5 turrets. Each of those turrets has dual size 3 weapons as of right now. I know that actually what it used to be, as I believe the back 2 turrets had size 2 weapons, I want to say. So they were actually even weaker, and I believe as part of the gold standard they raised those weapons up to size 3s. But one of my areas where I think the Retaliator could see some improvement potentially is in a little bit of a change to its gun setup. So if it's going to have those 5 turrets and each of them has size 3s, I think there is an argument to be made that some of the turrets could probably use a little bit of upgunning. I would say maybe 2 of the turrets, maybe 3 of them could go to potentially dual size 4s, and I think that would help the defensive and offensive capabilities of the ship a lot, because right now in total you have 10 size 3 weapons on there. With that amount of weaponry, you are barely outgunning things like the F-7A Hornet or the F-8C Lightning, and you're in a much larger ship, and so to me at least that doesn't make a whole lot of sense if it's considered to be a gunboat / bomber and you barely outgun some of the best fighters. I don't know. It seems like maybe there should be a little bit of upgunning done that could potentially bolster that offensive and defensive package a little bit. So I would think ideally you'd probably want the top forward turret and the bottom forward turret to be raised to dual size 4s. Possibly also the rear lower turret to dual size 4s. I think keeping the back turrets on the top side, those 2 on the backs, on the back of the Retaliator at dual size 3, I think that's fine. But yeah, I think just bringing a couple of the turrets up to dual size 4s would help a lot in its damage output and being able to be a relatively competent multi-crew ship, being able to take on at least 1 to 2, maybe 3 fighters. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments, because I've thought about that a lot. Like, again, I don't think it needs a major overhaul to the guns or anything. I'm not calling for a size 7 cannon or anything on the ship. I just think a little bit of an upgun on some of the turrets would help it out a lot. So let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments, because I am very curious to hear your thoughts on it and what you think would be a good option to help the Retaliator out in that respect. Because I just think right now it's outgunned in many aspects to even other ships. Like a Connie probably outguns this in terms of its DPS, and that's all pilot controlled, or a Corsair does as well. So Let me know again in the comments what you think. Next, I wanted to talk about some of the modules, their current state, as well as some ideas I have for some potential future modules. So right now, modules are pretty interesting. So technically, I believe the Retaliator is the first and still currently the only ship that has modularity, technically, as it has a couple of different module options you can equip to the ship. So if you are to just buy the Retaliator, so if you go buy it in-game at Loreville, it is, I think it's like 7.3 million credits or so. It's somewhere in the ballpark of 7 million. When you get that, it will have no torpedo module, no cargo module. It'll have the unladed module, which basically it's just an empty room. Not really much you can do with it. Maybe you can chuck some little storage boxes in through the little door. They won't have a cargo grid or anything, but they'll probably stay there. And then if you're wanting to get the cargo module or the torpedo module, currently I believe the only place you can get that is at the Omega Pro Shop in New Babbage. So at New Babbage, you can get the cargo and torpedo modules. So the front cargo module is going to run you 470k, and that actually carries 38 SCU, so 2 more SCU than the rear module, which carries 36. That can be gotten for 450k at New Babbage. And then if you're going to go for the torpedo modules, those are a fair amount more expensive. The front module is going to run you 1.8 million, and that gives you 4 size 9 torpedo hardpoints. And the rear torpedo module is going to run you 800,000. That is going to give you an additional 2 size 9 torpedo hardpoints. So those are fairly expensive, but the size 9 torpedoes are pretty nice to have. I will say, though, the modules themselves are a little bit buggy in the sense that when you equip them and you pull the ship up right after equipping them, the space where they should be shows as blank. What I found you actually have to do is you have to claim the ship again, so you can like self-destruct the ship and then just claim it back. And then once you have claimed it, the module will actually be there. So kind of weird on that front, but that's how you can get it to show up for now. The other weird thing right now with at least the torpedo modules is there's no way to permanently change the torpedoes to a different one from the default. So the default you get are the Argos torpedoes. Those are a cross-section torpedo, and I don't believe they are the best size 9 torpedo. I think the best one you would probably want would be the Seeker, as those are EM seeking torpedoes, and they typically track a little bit better. They also do more damage. The weird thing is the only way I've been able to equip new torpedoes is I have to fire off all the current ones first, and then I can equip new ones. But then when I have fired the new ones and I go to like reclaim the ship or whatever, it gives me back the stock ones again, back to the Argos. So there's some bug right now where you can't even restock them if you wanted to. But if you try and install new torpedoes, you claim the ship back, it'll set you back to the default ones. So that's kind of a bummer right now. So you're kind of stuck with the Argos ones, which they work okay. I'll show in a minute here. I have found the Retaliator to be actually quite useful in dumbfiring Polarises that come in that are hostile at the Align and Mine event. I'll throw up a couple clips here. It's really effective at like knocking off the back engines of the Polaris. I think one shot, like a one dumbfire that I got on a Polaris, I knocked off like all but like one of his engines. And that basically renders the Polaris immobile, and they're kind of screwed after that. Another clip I have is I actually, it was against Captain Foxy Loxy. I actually went against his Polaris, and I think the one that I shot at him there, it hit him on the nose. And the torpedoes, you know, they're not as effective. They don't do quite as much damage as the size 10s that the Polaris has, but those size 9s are just still doing almost 400,000 damage each, whereas the Polarises do about 750k or so. So, you know, roughly double the damage, but they still do a number on Polarises. So they are very effective on large targets. You can one-shot pretty much anything else besides a Polaris with the size 9. So your Hammerhead, 890 jump, Carracks, things like that, they all get one-shotted by those size 9s. So they are really nice. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about some future module ideas that I have had. I know that we have heard them discuss potential dropship modules, so you have a bunch of drop seats that you can come in really quick in this heavily armored torpedo boat, gunboat, whatever you want to call it. You can drop off some ground troops and get out of there. I've heard that there's maybe going to be a medical module. Maybe there'll be a habitation module that gives a little bit better living amenities for the crew, because at the moment there's not really like a dedicated kitchenette or anything in the Retaliator, so you're kind of, I guess if you were stationed here, you'd be stuck eating MREs and things like that. So I've heard those ideas. Another idea that I personally have had is I think it would be really cool if they made a missile module for the Retaliator. So you essentially turn the Retaliator from a torpedo boat into just a ultimate missile ship. So basically a Saber Firebird, but on steroids. So maybe you could have it, you might be able to have it equip some different sizes of missiles. Like maybe you could have it carry 16 size 5 torpedoes if you wanted, or you could have it carry like 200 size 1 missiles or something like that. I think there'd be a good amount of modularity within the module for what kind of missile racks you want to equip and things like that I think would be a really useful module. So then it would make the Retaliator capable of not just being only there to be able to take out large targets, but you can use smaller ordnance to be able to go after fighters and other smaller ships or medium ships. I think that would be a really effective module. I think potentially also there could be a space for maybe a bomber module, so like something that gives it the ability to drop bombs, maybe similar in size to the A1, or maybe there'd be a special module where you can carry one of the Colossus bombs that the A2 has. And maybe you can carry 2 of those. You can drop those. That would be very interesting as well. I'd love to see something like that. That would very much be in line with the role of the Retaliator as that bomber torpedo boat sort of ship. So yeah, that's a couple of ideas that I personally have had in terms of what potential modules they could do in the future. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about that? Do you think those would be a good idea? How would you think the best way is to do those sort of modules, or any other ideas that you have for potential new modules? I'd love to hear it. But yeah, that is going to be my thoughts on the Retaliator modules, kind of the state of that, and potential ways that could improve in the future. So now I wanted to talk briefly as we wrap up about a couple final things, and we will go ahead and wrap up the video. So for final thoughts and just a little bit of a recap. So again, I really, really love the Retaliator. I love the feeling of it, the nice kind of submarine bomber vibe that it gives you. I don't know. It just has a really nice vibe to it. I think there's a couple of things that could be done to make the ship a little bit better in terms of its offensive capabilities, its defensive capabilities. I personally would love to see them upgun a couple of the turrets to size 4s. I think, again, that would help with its offensive and defensive capabilities, make it more effective against fighters. Not too effective, of course. You know, we don't want it to be super overpowered or anything, but I think that would bring it up a little bit to kind of the current power level and would enable it to be maybe used a little bit more, because I don't see Retaliators around a ton. So that's one thing. I think potentially, I don't know if there's any way they could maybe squeeze one size 3 shield in. I think that would potentially be better than having those 6 size 2s. It would be a lot less power requirements. You'd get more shield HP, things like that. You know, they may have their reasonings for wanting to have redundancy or other sort of stuff like that. Well, I'm not entirely sure, but I'd love to see a size 3 shield if they could squeeze it in somewhere. If they can't do that, what I would love to see is right here in this corridor that has the 2 power plants, right here to the left of them, it looks like there is another slot where there could potentially be space to put a 3rd power plant. I think having 3 size 2 power plants would probably help this a little bit more, maybe give it, you know, a couple more power pips to use to power shields and weapons and all those various systems that you need to. So maybe that's a potential change they could make, and that wouldn't require too much additional work. Just, you know, adding another one of these component boxes right here and incorporating that into the ship. So I'd love to see something like that. And with regards to modules, Really hoping that they can get some fixes in for the current modules that we have, like again, trying to change the torpedoes and it doesn't stay changed for some reason. Hopefully they can get that figured out pretty quickly. And I'm looking forward to seeing new modules. I'd love to maybe if we get like a module at Invictus or something, that'd be cool. That'd be a cool little separate thing that you could, maybe 40 or 50 bucks for a missile module or a medical module or, something like that. That'd be cool to see come in Invictus as maybe a little bit of a surprise. But that is going to do it for my thoughts on the Aegis Retaliator. Again, this is a very cool ship. I absolutely love it, and I just want it to be more viable for use by players throughout the verse. And, not just see only Polarises out there, maybe have a couple other options that we could go with and try out. So I'd love to see your thoughts on the Retaliator in the comments. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What would you like to see changed? And let me know what you think of what I suggested in the video as well. I'd love to hear your opinions. So with that, that is going to do it. And until next time, I will see you in the verse.